Om Narayana. Om Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmatyasya yatonvayadi tarataschaarteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparerishwaraha Sadyo Hridya Varudya Tetra Kritibihi Shushrushubi Tatchanat. Ariom and greetings from Cleveland. I'm going to share with you a new shloka that you should internalize as the prayer that humanity needs back in the day and certainly right now. And I'll break this up so that you can remember it more. Swastyastu Vishwasya. May the multiverse be swasti, which means healthy and happy. Kalaha prasidatam. May those who are mean, may those who are agitated, may they be quiet, may they be cheerful. And that detail enough is so lovely. When we come across mean people, we want to reciprocate. This prayer is, when we come across a mean person, there must be a root cause. Let them be cheerful. Dhyayantu bhutani shivam mitho dhiya. May all creatures pray for mutual shivam, or shiva, which means egolessness, peace. And I was joking with someone recently. Sheila and I are celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. And imagine I held Sheila's hand and said, for the last decade, I have tolerated you. Right? I'm not going to make it to the next day, leave alone decade. So that's why a better framing is mutual respect. May all creatures pray for mutual respect. Manascha bhadram bhajatad adhokshaje aveshyatam naha matir apya hetuki. May our minds flow towards the Creator without the intention of getting. Our minds do flow towards the Creator, but it's either out of begging or out of fear. You agree? I want this, so I remember the Creator. Or I'm afraid of this, so I move towards the Creator. But the prayer here is, may all of our minds move towards the Creator, because that's the only way that one can be bhadra, or happy. Do you like that prayer? This is a really lovely prayer. I'll share it with our team, and our team will share it with you. In Cleveland this weekend in January, we always have a workshop weekend. For kids, for adults, for the community. For the kids, we watched a movie called Zootopia. Have you all seen Zootopia before? It's a hilarious and deep movie. And continuing with our kids, our camp is called Heroes, Past, Present, and Potential. And the heroes we're studying are Devi Sita and Devi Devaki. That's past. Present is Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel. And potential is all of our kids. In Zootopia, as long as people watch the movie in a shallow way, the message is there are predators and there are prey. The distinction is really might is right. When we think of heroes in a shallow way, Wonder Woman has an awesome whip. Captain Marvel has all of this radiance around her. But that's why we're going to the past. Devi Sita is an icon of focus. When she would walk, she would focus on Bhagwan Rama's footsteps to not step in those footsteps. That's how much she revered Bhagwan Rama. And Devi Devaki, she is an icon of resilience. No one has gone through more hardships than Devi Devaki. And in case you're not tuning in, I'm going to focus a little bit more. Though Mother Sita is an icon of focus, she made a mistake. In one moment, her focus shifted from the feet of Bhagwan Rama to that golden deer. And how illogical it is for there to be a golden deer, but that's what happens when you're distracted, isn't it? You stop being objective, you stop being logical. The consequences that came with that. She made a mistake, but then she rebounded, isn't it? As soon as Ravana held on to her, she realized she made a mistake, and she never got distracted from chanting Ram, Ram, Ram since that distraction. With Devi Devaki, I'll use the word miscarry. 7 of her newborns, infants, were murdered. And she was told in advance that all 8 would experience the same. But she still resiliently went through that experience in hopes that the 8th, the newborn or infant, would redeem her, would redeem all. And I'm using the word miscarry because anyone who's gone through the experience of trying to have a child, of having a child, this is quite common. And I feel that we don't discuss it enough, and that's why we don't encourage resilience. But if we remember an icon like her, we would talk about this more, and people would be more resilient then. That this happens. It's not just you. I'm introducing our course with this beginning by highlighting once you go deep enough to God, you start to experience only God. You, all humans, all animals, all plants. And if you don't go deep enough to God, then you don't see God anywhere. Not in you, not in others. Our course is a course in long-term thinking and deep thinking. And the fact that you're in this course, you know that there's more to life than what you're experiencing, which is why you want to immerse yourself in Bhagavata. See, this is my problem. I introduce each class for 15 minutes. And then I'm expected to speak on 2 shlokas in 15 minutes. It's most lovely. Whatever you love, you can't stop talking about, no? Coming back to the 5th canto, to complete thoughts and review last week, our multiverse is sometimes known as a anda. What does anda mean? Egg or shell. And technically it's known as mrita ande. Mrita ande means an inert shell or a dead egg. Until the presence of Surya Narayana enters this inert shell or dead egg, and that's why Surya Narayana is known as Martanda. Martanda is a name for the sun. It's the one who makes that inert shell conscious, makes that dead egg alive. So Martanda, Surya, or the sun, is how in Sanatana Dharma we measure time. And this is why I shared with you, Bhagavan Vishnu's discus, Sudarshan, that's actually time. That's always moving. The sun's movements also decides the nakshatras, or the constellations. The constellations that we see in the Chinese New Year or in our horoscope, all of that is contained in Sanatana Dharma, in Bhagavatam. Which Sankranti is this? Makara Sankranti. That's a change in the flow of the sun in essentially the constellations. What will happen in July? What Sankranti is that? I think it's known as Karkara Sankranti, where the sun changes its direction again. And we know that. The longest day of the year is in June, and then the days become shorter as it goes towards winter. I'm trying to explain the science that is contained in these details. In this canto on sthana, which is positioning, if you're born on earth, you have a mixture of merit and demerit, or punya and papa. If you're born above earth, you have more punya. If you're born on earth, you have a mixture. And if you're born below earth, I went through those 7 regions, you have more papa. But you have to be careful about this, because if you're born in heaven, is it so good? A cruise is only fun for day 1 and 2, and after that you just get sick. And imagine living below earth is, I don't know, being in Bharat in the summer where it's so hot and so rainy, but you get used to it and you come to appreciate the tapa that comes with it. Mahabali, where has he been relegated to? Sutala. He's apparently living below the earth, the region below the earth. And there's a lovely detail here where Mahabali is essentially being sarcastic with Indra. Indra is the one who prays to Bhagavan Vamana, saying that Mahabali's taking over. He's taking over the heavens. Come and help. And so Bhagavan obliges and takes all of that land away from Mahabali. That will come. But Mahabali tells Indra, how foolish you are that you prayed to God for a geographical space? Look what I got. God is now my guard. Correct? Who protects Mahabali? Bhagavan. And Mahabali is supposed to be egotistical and asura, but you see how thoughtful he is. And the idea being for us is don't get lost in comfort, that heaven is comfortable and hell is uncomfortable. It's all in your head. Indra is the most insecure person in Bhagavatam. And now Mahabali is the most secure person, no? And this canto ends with details on Naraka being given. Do you remember those details? If you give in to lust, what kind of loka will you be going to? Yama loka, the hell that is governed by Yama. And whoever you are lusty towards, that person comes as a metal figure, but they're red hot and you have to keep on hugging them. And you have to keep on doing that until you apparently learn your lesson. So I think a lot of the capital punishment we know, that's also come from Bhagavatam. But the difference is, you keep getting rehabilitated and come back to earth. The first canto is focusing on Adhikari. There are 19 chapters. The second skanda, I'm using canto and skanda interchangeably, is the sadhana skanda. There are 10 chapters. The third skanda is sarga, 35 chapters. The fourth skanda is visarga, 31 chapters. And the fifth skanda, which we've just completed, is sthana, And there are 26 chapters. The original dialogue in Srimad Bhagavatam is Rishi Shaunaka, who represents us, speaking to Rishi Ugrashavas, who represents our guide. And Rishi Shaunaka asks Rishi Ugrashavas about Sukha Prapti. Rishi Shaunaka has everything in life like us. I mentioned a few earlier: education, traveling, socializing, earning. Rishi Shaunaka has more than all of us combined, literally. But he knows there's a difference between absence of pain and presence of peace. So he wants to know, how can I be peaceful? And Rishi Shaunaka his question is being answered through these skandhas. The 6th skandha is known as Poshana. What is the name of the sun that sounds like Poshana? Pushan. Pushan means the one who nourishes. The sun nourishes us, right? If the sun is too far, we die. If the sun is too close, we die. The sun is perfectly nourishing us. Poshan, elaborated, is Tat Anugraha. Tat Anugraha. The word Tat means divine or God. Graha means to hold. Anugraha means to hold well or completely. So Poshana is when Bhagwan is holding on to you tightly. But Bhagwan will only hold on to you tightly if you are holding on to Bhagwan tightly. Okay, remember that as I continue. The 6th skandha focuses on redemption. How God redeems, and I'll list these personalities shortly. In a bigger sense, this skandha focuses on Raksha. What does Raksha mean? Protection. We're always afraid, so we chant, Toma Rakshaka Kaho Kodarna, but we're still afraid. Because we chant it, but we don't internalize it. This whole chapter, you should feel you're flowing through this chapter. If you become less afraid, try to tune into that. Are you becoming more courageous? When I was in Bharat, I had my eyes checked, and my eyes had not changed, but my glasses are very much scratched, so I got 2 pairs of glasses made. And when that optometrist was changing those lenses, when I couldn't see, you feel more afraid, right? If you can't see through your windshield, you drive quite slowly and you're quite apprehensive. But if you can see clearly, you drive fast. These details will help us to develop this clarity and feel protected. Swami Tejomayananda shares the difference between kripa and anugraha. Kripa is general grace that all of us have. And he subjectifies this by saying, kripa is when there is an acquisition of pleasure, possessions, and position to make you independent. As an example, on January 26th, that is when Bharat established a constitution to really become free of foreign rule. You're in tune with me? So that's kripa, and we all have that. Anugraha is not about acquisition, but it's renunciation of dependency. Acquisition makes you independent, but a special grace is when you have all of that, but you don't depend on all of that. That is when you're given peace, isn't it? A peaceful person, do they need pleasure? I mentioned that earlier. It is unhappy kids that look for fun. It is unhappy adults that look for fun. Those who are happy, they don't need to have fun. They have fun where they are. one of my cousins had come to live with us in Niagara Falls back in the day. And I was in high school and then university, so always looking for fun. And we would always ask him, why don't you come to the movie? Why don't you come for dinner? Why don't you come to this party? And he would always just kind of ignore us, my cousins and I, my friends and I. But one day he made a statement that I'm still remembering, the fact that I'm telling you. He said, I don't need to have fun like all of you do. And that really blew my mind. He was studying at a college for some business degree, and here's Vivek, studied at the Ivy School of Business. But he was actually way more evolved than I was. That despite all of my education, I keep looking for fun, and he said, I don't need to have fun like all of you. He just stayed at home and read and would sleep early and so on. It was a really awesome teaching from my useless cousin. And that really shows the presence of Bhagavan in anyone, if you're listening. If you're not listening, even in Bhagavatam, Bhagavan is not there then, right? One more thought about this skanda before we begin. In this skanda, the two focuses is nama and rupa. The narration relating to nama is about Ajamila. And the narration about rupa is about Indra. And I think most of you would not know this. The most moving part of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is in this skanda. And it is a prayer, it is shlokas given by an asura. His name is Vritra Asura. Not skanda 10 about Bhagavan Krishna's birth, not about Bhagavan Rama loving Devi Sita. It is from an asura who's saying to Indra, I know that God is in front of me and I am longing for God to take my life away. And I'll get to that. But it's how much this asura is enamored by the form or the rupa of Bhagavan. And I love that detail because we have this orthodox thinking that it will be about Bhagavan Krishna or a Swami. But it's by an asura on the battlefield that the depth of Bhagavatam is shared. And there's a relatability that comes with that, isn't it? We're all on our battlefield, no? The weather is our battlefield. We're all asuras to an extent. One extent is how late we stay up. The fifth skanda ends with Raja Parikshita worried about Naraka. When you've incurred actions that are mean, we call that papa, where are you supposed to go? When you're a papi, where should you go? We think we're supposed to Ganga Mata, right? When you go to Ganga Mata, she'll wash away all of your sins. That's known as, and try to remember this, Kunjara Shauchavat. Do you know what Kunjara means? Elephant. After an elephant is totally bathed in water, what does that elephant do? Rolls around in that dust and mud, correct? That's like us too. I traveled all the way to the Himalayas and I went in the Ganga and then back to Delhi or Maya Nagari, right? So this tends to be our habit, is this Kunjara Shauchavat. But the right understanding is when we have incurred that which is wrong to engage in prayishchitta. What is the English word for prayishchitta? Atonement. But this word I'm going to open up for you. Chitta means mind. I think you know that. Prayaha means discipline. So prayishchitta is where your mind should be so disciplined that you don't make that mistake again. And if you have made the mistake, you've not disciplined your mind. Now we come back to Devi Sita. She made a mistake. Look at the prayishchitta she incurred. Did she make that mistake again? She didn't. In English, this is essentially called remorse. When one is remorseful, they learn from their own experience and they evolve. They reconcile their experience and they evolve. Okay. I'm going to fly through what I wanted to share in half an hour in 5 minutes. So be vigilant, and I'll review it more next week. I am on the second adhyaya of the 6th canto. Okay, we're in the 6th section. This is the 8th shloka, lines 1 and 2. So 6, 2, 8, 1 and 2. Ete neva hyago nosya kritam syad aghanishkritam yada narayana yeti jagada chaturaksharam. And what is shared here is Yama's messengers or servants are asking Yama, the Lord of Death, how is it that someone like Ajamila, who is a lusty personality, how is it that Bhagavan Narayana's messengers have come to save him? And the explanation given is, when someone chants these 4 letters. What are those 4 letters? Na, ra, ya, na. Say it out. Narayana. When someone chants these 4 letters, then all of their agha, all of their impurities are cleaned. So that's why Ajamila is saved. Ajamila is apparently born as a Brahmana. And one day, he is moving towards his puja, and he needs to collect flowers. So he goes into this jungle to collect fresh flowers. And when he's in that jungle, he sees a vanik, he sees a merchant who goes into that jungle with a prostitute. And when he sees that this vanik and this prostitute look happy, I'm highlighting look happy. When he comes back to his home, all he thinks of is how happy that man is. And he's not thinking about his own grace. He's not thinking about his own blessings, about his own wife. As you think, so you develop. He keeps thinking of this prostitute, and he can't help himself but start to be mean to his wife, and eventually kicks his wife out of his house. And he keeps being nice to the prostitute and invites her to his house. And he goes from someone who's worshiping God to someone who's worshiping his senses. And eventually they have a child. Ajamila and the prostitute. So now I fast forward some details. One day a sadhu is wandering through the village of Ajamila, and he asks someone, who here is known for charity? Who here is Danavira? Because he's looking for food. And these villagers sarcastically say Ajamila. Right? If there's a prostitute at home, there can't be a lot of charity going on. So they sarcastically say that. And so he goes to this home, and Ajamila is out, probably buying liquor. And the sadhu realizes right away that people are being mean to that sadhu. We have that habit too, to be sarcastic with people who are different than us. And he sees this little boy running around. And he asks that prostitute, that Devi, he says, what is this boy's name? And she says, we've never given him a name. There was no one to be there for his namakarna, so he has no name. And I think of this in 2 ways. Number 1, it shows how poor that parenting is, isn't it? Someone else didn't take care of my kid, so I don't take care of my kid. And I just referenced how that goes on and on and on, isn't it? Secondly, it shows that you're not supposed to give your child a casual name from Wikipedia or some website online. But a sadhu should know the parents and should know the flow of who that child is going to be, and a name accordingly should be given. Correct? They never gave that name because there was no one wise to give them that name. A really lovely detail. Ajamila, living such an indulgent life, has become sick. And I think I read in my notes that he was 88. Back in the day, people lived longer despite how sick they were. Don't think you can do that, okay? If he lived 88, I should live like that too. And he felt like he was about to die. And who was his greatest attachment in life? His son. And when that sadhu was there, that sadhu named the son Narayana. Hence, I'm referencing this. That sadhu gave that rogue boy the name of Narayana. So now as Ajamila feels he's about to die, who does he call out for? Narayana. Like our kids, when Vyasa wakes up in the morning and he doesn't know where he is, he says, Appa. So Sheila goes in. So he calls out Narayana, and he goes into, we'll call it, he becomes unconscious or goes into a coma. And at that moment, Yama's messengers have come because he's apparently dead, and they're going to take him, but who shows up also? Narayana's messengers, and said, enough. He's coming with us. And so they free Ajamila. Ajamila doesn't actually come to Vaikunta, but they just free him from that coma, that unconscious state. And when he kind of remembers all of this, he was about to die, but he was given another chance, he totally converts his ways to go back to being disciplined, to being a brahmana who studies and shares the scriptures. And eventually in his life, he goes to Haridwara. Haridwara, that is the gateway to Bhagavan Hari. And from there, he is enlightened. When Yama's messengers had come to have this discussion with Narayana's messengers, with Yama, Yama's messengers, it's like a debate that's going on, says, Ajamila followed no dharma. And dharma comes from the Veda. So he followed no dharma. He had no respect or love or reverence for the scripture. So Narayana's messengers are hearing this, and they say, you're right technically, but where does the Veda come from? It comes from Narayana, exactly. So he's gone past dharma and Veda to the source, which really means that he is following the Veda and dharma. And quite factually, it's true. What should dharma and Veda be leading you to? Bhagavan. Do you have to study dharma and Veda to be enlightened? No. Should you study the dharma and Veda to be enlightened? Yes. Now there are people, if you take someone like Sri Ramana, who, I think he was 13 or 16, not even in university. He had left his home, arrived in Tamil Nadu, threw everything he had, his earrings, his money, and looked at Arunachala and said, Father, I'm home. And never left there. Now people like us who get into these details think, he didn't have a guru, I don't need a guru. If you're asking that question, you need a guru, right? If I have the bhava that he doesn't have a guru, I don't need one either, you definitely need a guru then. See, with Sri Ramana, in his past life, he would have had a guru where he was just a moment away from enlightenment. He only needed, say, 15 years for him to break the ego's back. So in the case of Ajamila, he went straight to Narayana. And I can just go on, but next week I am going to go on. So be ready for next week. But here's one lighter thought for you to think about. and this is not in Bhagavatam, I'd read this in a different source. Mother Lakshmi, she feels that Bhagwan Narayana doesn't spend enough time with her. She feels that he travels too much. So, when Ajamila is calling out Narayana, she said, he wasn't even calling you. He doesn't even know who you are, and if he did, he doesn't like you. And you're going out of your way. I'm massaging your feet. I love you. You wear me on your neck. Why do you always travel so much? Are you not happy at home? And he says, he may not know my name, but I know my name. He may not know it, but I do. Just like right now, if I said Vivek, I may be referring to that Vivek, but there's another Vivek whose name is Vivek too. Both are going to look at me, correct? When someone loves you that much, and in this case, Bhagwan loves us that much, God will find any excuse to hold us tightly. Anugraha. That's such a lovely thought that he doesn't know my name, but I know my name. He doesn't know what he needs, but I know what he needs. And how Bhagwan leaves Mother Lakshmi, and after that dialogue, she just smiled. Go continue your traveling. Tatastu. When we gather again next week, I'm going to invest a lot of time on all you need in your life is japa. You want to be enlightened in the next 1 year, in the next 10 years? Immerse yourself in Bhagwan's Nama. Oh.